very good afternoon to each one of you. On behalf of the Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, we welcome each one of you for this session on CSR engagement with a multiplier effect facilitated by the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India. Before we could start the program, next slide. We'll have 2 minutes of silence as a tribute to all those who have lost their lives to COVID-19 and pray for their soul rest in peace. And also we'll express our gratitude to all the frontline COVID-19 warriors for their invaluable service.
Our water body, they could not be the dumping yard for our waste, the waste which is solid waste, which is the many places. So secondly, the fitness facilities we have to look at, like in this.
Shall we start? It's 2 minutes over.
Yeah, sure. Sure, so we'll start, sir. Thank you. Thank you all for the kind support to paying the respect to the departed souls. We'd like to especially thank our president, Mr. T.R. Parshuraman, for facilitating this session for the benefit of our members on this particular topic. The today's session will be addressed by Dr. Sapna Poti, who is the program director in the Principal Scientific Advisors Office, Government of India. She'll be sharing with us today about the CSR engagement facilitated by our office on promoting scientific R&D and innovation for social impact, which will address our industry problems through industry, foundations, and government channels. On behalf of the Chamber and the office bearers of BCIC, we express our sincere thanks to Dr. Sapna Poti for accepting our invitation to address on this important subject. We would also like to thank all the participants for joining today's session. We request all of the participants to kindly mute your mic and the webcam option to enhance and keep the bandwidth strong, as well as avoid any disturbance in the background. Please post your questions in the chat box and the speaker will respond to the questions during this session. May I now invite our President, Mr. T.R. Parsham, to do the welcome address. Thanking you once again all. Over to you, President, sir.
Thank you, Prithvi. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Very hearty welcome to Dr. Sapna Poti. I'm very happy today because she has spared her time to address the Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Dr. Sapna Poti has a rich experience both in the corporate sector as well as in the bureaucratic sector and also in the academia. She has been very actively involved in various programs of the Prime Minister's mission. And she was very helpful when Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce approached her on the initiative to collaborate with the PSA office on the scientific and social innovation. So we are working now on realizing that Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, with its rich experience of thought leaders and corporates from various sectors, probably can contribute in research and social innovation. So together with the PSA office, we are working on this initiative, and very shortly we should be able to come out with some kind of a collaboration activity with the big support of a PSA office led by Dr. Sapna Poti. So for your interest of the audience, Dr. Sapna Poti is a program director in the Principal Scientific Advisors Office, Government of India. Her primary role is to promote scientific R&D and innovations for social impact and to address industry problems through industry foundations and government channels. This includes engaging science and technology institutes and the entire start of ecosystem to meet the national missions and national priorities, including COVID-19, doubling the farmers' income, Make in India, water mission, waste management mission, etc. Dr. Poti is a PhD from IIT Madras with a dissertation of enterprise resource planning, as around 26 years of rich experience in various corporates, industries, consulting, and government services. Her previous stints were with Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, Tata Trust, National Skill Development Corporation, under the aegis of the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, the social development and government sector. Dr. Poti also has the industry and consulting experience with ITC, Pilot, Devitt Associates, Deloitte, Toyota Kirloskar, Tatas, and Crompton Greaves. Dr. Poti is a member of the Niti Aayog expert group on the skill development for mountain states, member of GIZ, MSME committee, and MESA's advisory committee. Further, Dr. Poti is a Chevening Awardee 2015. She is also a member on the board of studies of skill development and educational institutions. She has authored national and international journal papers. So I think these are all some of her background information. But I know that she is a wonderful human being with rich experience and a very bold and dynamic leader. In fact, we have seen her in the corporates, and the kind of role she has played in bringing revolutionary changes has been mind-boggling. In fact, she has also got a rich HR experience. I remember those days, and she used to take very bold decisions. Those days, I used to tell myself that definitely she is going to be a national leader one day. And I'm very happy to see that she has rise to that occasion. And today, she is a very tall personality in the national scenario. So with these words, I don't want to take much of your time. I once again thank Dr. Sapna Poti for her time, and I'm sure that she will bring in a lot of thinking in all our minds on the social and technological clusteral innovation in the PSA office. With this, over to you, Dr. Sapna Poti. Welcome once again.
Parshuram sir, can we have some word from Shekhar sir also, senior
Yeah,
vice?
Shekhar, please.
Shekhar sir, can you share some thoughts? Sir?
Thanks, Parasu. Thanks, Prithvi. And as Parasuram has already explained all the good things about Sapna, so only one thing I know her from my Deloitte days, and I'm extremely happy to meet Sapna, Dr. Sapna Poti first, because I'm meeting her after a gap of almost 10 to 15 years. But great to see her and then sharing her experience to all of us. And I'm very happy as a friend and a well-wisher that she has risen to that level. And also, though Parshuraman has already explained once, and probably I'm repeating it again, she's the person who's behind for signing our MOU with R&D clusters. And she has been the mover from that side. And she has been a great supporter for Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. And when my offline corner, I told her, Parasuraman is, even if next year onwards also you need to extend the same support to me also. That's what I requested her. And she has assured it. but jokes apart, definitely once the agreement gets MOU gets signed with Mr. Parasuraman, and we are all working on that, she'll be a lot more visible for BCSC, and she's always available for BCSC members for us to take it forward. I called it those as only as Sapna. I'll prefer to call you as Sapna. If you call you as Dr. Sapna, it becomes a little bit artificial for me. Don't take me wrong. Thanks a lot for being here and sharing your perspective. Back to you, Prithvi.
Oh, thanks, Shekhar sir, for your wonderful experience that you had with Sapna working at Deloitte. Dr. Sapna Poti, over to you now to take.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Sapna.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Parshuraman, as well as Mr. Shekhar. It's really amazing that we can connect back, and both ex-colleagues and Parshram, of course, also has been a personal friend for a long, long time. And I'm happy to support BCIC not only because of both of you, but also because I am a Bangalorean and I need to be there for you whenever required as a city as well. So coming to our office, Principal Scientific Advisor, the short form is PSA. Basically, it is the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Prime Minister or to the Government of India. And the first Principal Scientific Advisor was Dr. Abdul Kalam many, many years ago. And post which we had Dr. Chidambaram from ISRO, and now we have Dr. Vijay Raghavan, who's a Royal Society member. He's a distinguished scientist as well as Padma Shri and so on. This PSA office basically works very closely with the Government of India, line ministries, and the vertical that I head works closely with the industry and the foundations. So that's how we manage to actually bridge the gaps which are there between all these, seamlessly. My role largely has been to engage foundations, industries, be it global or Indian, governments of different countries who are interested, embassies, and so on, to do philanthropic work as well as for industry R&D, which also ensures that outsourcing of research and development by the industries is undertaken. So let's actually understand the milieu before we even start this entire conversation. The milieu basically has us as the third best innovators and R&D as a country, and we need to reach the second or the first sometime soon. We also have a demographic dividend, as all of you are aware, so which means that we have to energize our youth to reach that. It could be through skill development, or it could be through science, technology, and innovation startup ecosystem. The startup ecosystem that I'm talking about is largely on social impact and emerging technologies. And we also need industry and academia working together, which means the top researchers of ours who are very good at fundamental research and applied researchers from industry need to closely work on social impact and issues that are today faced by our nation. So there are two large trajectories that we undertake. One is focusing on emerging technologies. So when we say emerging technologies, we could look at entire spectrum of them, like semiconductor or AI, the artificial intelligence for education or artificial intelligence for agriculture and so on. And then you have emerging technologies like quantum. Some of these are very nascent and new, and that's why it's called emerging. Some of them are in mid stage, but still they are emerging because nuances have to be built in these technologies. The second most important is that finally science, technology, and innovation needs to help socially. It needs to have a social impact in the nation. Otherwise, it's no point that we spend so much of energy, efforts, and resources behind STI. So social impact kind of projects, it could be ranging from water, waste management, sludge management, to renewable energy, agriculture, whatever touches the underprivileged, as well as things like pandemics, health, education, and all of that. So these are our major trajectories: emerging technologies and social impact. For this, we need a framework. So the framework has a couple of aspects. The first aspect is the legal framework. CSR funding can be undertaken only to those institutes which can accept CSR funding. My previous stint in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs also helps me to understand, and of course, I've also articulated some of the reports for the high-level committee. So I know the Schedule 7 in and out. In the Schedule 7, we from the PSA's office have included some of those regulations and some of those clauses which are very important for us. The first one being for R&D, organizations can fund institutes. They could be IITs, it could be institutes of eminence, ICARs, CSIRs, ICERs, and so on. So about 100, 150 institutes can be funded through this. Second is that we also looked at incubation of startups. So incubators of these institutes are also permitted to accept CSR funding. they need to provide the utilization certificates, accounting, etc. So while our office facilitates all of this, we do not engage in receiving any funds. Nor do we sign MOUs between the institute and the funding organization or the Chamber of Commerce. They engage directly when it comes to MOUs and funding. This also helps us to have an unbiased look in the entire spectrum of things. So the second one is that we also, not only institutes, we also have something called the science technology innovation clusters. These clusters are right now in about 7 or 8 cities. So we have Pune Knowledge Cluster, we have Bangalore Knowledge Cluster, Delhi, Hyderabad, Bhubaneswar, Jodhpur as knowledge clusters. So when we say knowledge clusters, what we mean is that a set of institutes, top-notch institutes like NCBS, Indian Institute of Science, Triple IT, Bangalore, and so on, and some of others come together along with MSMEs and industries to attack certain social impact issues. And I may give you 1 or 2 examples as we move on. So that's how we have science, technology, innovation clusters plus institutes. So the CSR organizations can engage with these clusters, or they can engage with individual institutes which are permitted to accept CSR funding. And of course, there are clauses in the Schedule 7 which are right from affordable housing to elevation of poverty to agriculture and so on. All of them are implemented as well by some of these researchers, some of these startups. So not only do we have special clauses like incubation of startups and R&D, we also have these implementation projects which cuts across the entire Schedule 7. So very comfortably, CSR can work with these institutes. So that's the legal framework. Now we have to look at the operational framework, that how do we undertake all of this in a very meticulous and structured manner. There are a couple of ways to do it. One is to support some of these institutes to set up centers of excellence. So these centers of excellence would focus on technologies, they would focus on proof of concept, they would also focus on scaling up of the entire process and to implement on the ground, where the line ministries also could be involved. That is something the Center of Excellence and its governing council and the entire paraphernalia would work on these elements. It's an aggregator of technologies of a particular area. I will also give some illustrations as we go on. The second type of engagement is individual R&D. That is basically if you want to outsource some of your R&D because you have limited resources, you have limited equipments, and so on. And institutes and researchers, their core work is to do R&D, whereas the industry's core work is to do manufacturing. So R&D teams are generally much smaller. So you could also utilize the equipment, utilize the knowledge which is available in some of these institutes and outsource R&D. The third one is in terms of startup challenges. A lot of organizations are very happy to engage with startups, especially on social impact, and we've seen several such areas where industries have thrown up challenges to these startups, and the startups have stood up to it, and we have had some very good engagements. And then we also have offerings, which is some organizations would like to give computing space. Some of them would like factory premises to be used, and some of them offered manufacturing premises for these startups. Some of them want to look at technology transfers and so on. So any kind of offering from the industry is also one part of the story, where the industry or the foundations have certain things that they would like to offer to the entire startup ecosystem, and people apply for it, and then the first top 10, 15, 100 are chosen by the industry depending on what offer is. The next one is the implementation projects. That's again a methodology. Like I mentioned, that many of these technologies can be implemented. So it could be a pure implementation project where organizations, and this comes very easy to a CSR organization because they have historically worked with NGOs, they have worked with implementation partners. So they don't understand much of research and things like that. And that's why this topic called multiplier effect is important, because while you take care of your catchment area, or you take care of underprivileged communities and so on, which is very important, of course, but I feel that if you look at investing on R&D or an innovation, which not only takes care of that community, it also takes care of the entire country and sometimes also outside of the country in developing countries and so on. I have several such instances and examples to share with you. So implementation projects, for instance, could be lake rejuvenation, it could be agriculture or farming ICT tool that you have provided to the farmers, farm credits, for instance, or it could be sludge management, waste management, where you've undertaken an entire, use the waste to do a, maybe a 1 kilometer road utilizing landfill waste management and so on. And then, of course, the last one is pandemic. A lot of projects of pandemic is what you can engage with. Again, a multiplier effect, because if you fund one such program, it helps the entire nation and sometimes in different nations. So these are several ways and methods in which you can engage with these institutes. Now, let me give you some illustrations of each of these so that it's crystal clear in terms of how you do it. The first one is Center of Excellence. You could be setting up a Center of Excellence in some of these institutes. The Center of Excellence could be focusing on, say, sludge management or air pollution or renewable energy and so on. So what does it mean? You could get into either a private consortium of a couple of industries together, or you could be the only sole funder, or you could also do a PPP, which means that you request the government through our office to fund a bit of it and you fund the rest of it for the Center of Excellence. Let me give you one clear example. There is a Center of Excellence of sludge management, which we are putting up in IIT Palakkad, where we are looking at DST funding. There are 3 pillars to that. The first pillar, which is basically technology evaluation and focusing on innovation and R&D. DST will be funding that pillar. The second pillar is to take some of these selected, evaluated technologies to the proof of concept. So ERM is funding that, which is ERM is very well known in this space. They are funding about 25 crores, and they are also providing a land where the proof of concept can be done, which means that the sludge which is moved out along with the technology is basically tested out completely to see that the technology is working well. And then we have of course scale up. And Gates Foundation has offered that they will help with the scale up and the innovations that are coming out of the Center of Excellence. Similarly, we have Air Pollution Center of Excellence, Bloomberg, CCIF, then we have ITC, quite a few organizations who are interested in air pollution. They are also interested in industrial waste, which is part of air pollution, agriculture waste, which is again part of air pollution, and so on. Organizations like Pepsi, Coke, there are quite a few people interested in air pollution centers of excellence. Renewable energy, again, Selco Foundation and IIT Dharwad are working on a Center of Excellence focusing only on renewable energy, where we look at 200 kilometers across the center and working with the grassroots level to take some of these technologies which the startups innovate as well as incubate to the ground through grassroots level, which means we also increase the livelihood of these grassroots level. And Selco Foundation, as you know, is very, very prominent in this space. So IIT Dharwad works with Selco on this, and so on. So that is Center of Excellence. R&D, that is single R&D or R&D outsourcing. There is several organizations working with us. I think about 200 plus today. From Bangalore, we can say that BEL is one of the organizations which is working with us, which has outsourced its defense microprocessor. IOCL has given us about 120 such projects which we have disseminated. They have selected 17 IITs to undertake these projects, which is being outsourced to some of these institutes, and so on. So that is pure R&D, which is focused on emerging technologies as well as social development. Similarly, startup challenges, there are several of them. Again, from Bangalore, we have Cisco, which has got a complete startup cohort launch called the Agriculture Startup Launch from Cisco. So a lot of startups from the across ecosystem we have brought together for them to work on. I've also inaugurated some of these cohorts, and I keep getting updates on how well they're doing. Similarly, Amazon, they're working with women entrepreneurs, so quite a few of them have been sponsored, and the challenge has been thrown by Amazon. When we say challenge thrown by Amazon, it means that we together articulate the thematic areas which are important for a startup at that particular time, and as per the vision of the organization. For instance, Microsoft may want to focus on certain areas, and so on. Amazon, Cisco. We work towards making a excellent challenge, and then we take it to the startups, through all the institutes and the startups that we are connected with. And then we look at the entire cohort and getting them trained, getting them skilled, mentored, and all of that through the particular organization which is running this challenge. Daimler and so on. So there are several challenges. So all of you are, please, you're welcome to go to the Principal Scientific Advisors Office's portal. There's a section called Industry Engagement, Innovation and Science at the Rate of Bharat, which is my section, and all the success stories are mentioned there. I think we have more than 200 to 150 today in a span of about 1.5 years. Similarly, I mentioned offerings. Now, offerings could be artificial intelligence professionals. For instance, during the pandemic, while we were doing sequence pooling of samples for virology studies and epidemiology studies, we had a lot of AI professionals who were offered from globally from Microsoft and organizations of that sort, Capgemini and so on, IBM. They offered their professionals. Similarly, computing space. Amazon offers free computing space to the top 15,000 startups which are working on social impact causes. Similarly, like I mentioned, implementation projects. Schedule 7 has all implementation projects. Like I meant, it's elevation of poverty to agriculture to farmer income, affordable housing, and so on. We use 3D printing for some of it. Honeywell, for instance, is working with IIT Madras to look at rejuvenating lakes in Chennai, and so on. So there are several such projects which are being undertaken, and the whole list, as I mentioned, is provided there. Pandemic was one opportunity for us to understand what kind of work innovators can do. So last year we did about 56 innovations, and almost all of them are being used by each one of you. We had undertaken work with the funding of in support funding as well as in kind by Tata Motors, Microsoft, Capgemini, Standard Chartered Bank, Toyota, PNB Housing, several of them. So we did about 56 innovations, Indian Institute of Science, ISRO, DRDO, IIT Delhi, all of them came up, IIT Guwahati and so on. All of them came up, and several startups, you must have heard of an organization called My Labs. Several startups also came up with innovations, and we thoroughly went through all of them, and we worked with some of them. We got them funded through CSR and philanthropic foundations. So we have built several innovations, RT-PCR testing kits, antigen testing kits, some of them. BSCL Labs, which is Mobile Labs for Rural India. It is a design of DRDO, implemented and designed by IIC as well, and several such innovations were done. Reagents during this time, if you recall, we used to get them from Korea, and it was being imported, and those were not working well. So we also worked on producing those in India. So Bangalore cluster is the one which did the reagents development, and this was sponsored and funded by Rockefeller Foundation. And similarly, we had ventilators and so on. This year, because of the second wave, we have been focusing on oxygen, which again we are making in India. We have an entire consortium of large, medium-sized, and small organizations. In large, we have organizations like Tata, Kirloskar, Bharat Electronics, along with ECIL. In medium-sized, we have FICCI MSMEs, and in small size, we have about 8 IITs and their startups working together as a consortium. So the funding comes from NMDC, it comes from USAID, and all kinds of CSR organizations as well. So that is one national project that we are doing. We are also setting up about 60 hospitals across the country. Again, the innovation is called Medicabs. It is from IIT Madras. And we, as I speak, we would be launching about 8 to 10 of them across different states. Bangalore is also, in one of the government hospitals. We're going to be launching one of the hospitals. So in batches and installments of 8 to 10, we are building these for different state governments. through this, which is of, it takes about 4 weeks to set up a 100-bed hospital, and it is an extension hospital to the main government hospital. So that's the other innovation. Of course, Bangalore is again known for NCBS and CCAMP, Indian Institute of Science. So a lot of virology and epidemiology studies, which Google is trying to sponsor. Paytm, Gates Foundation has sponsored several times, Rockefeller, Wellcome Trust, and so on. So several such programs are being done. So to cut it short, the way forward is what we need to look at. We have enough cases and enough precedents of doing some very exemplary work in a short period of 1.5 years. But the way forward is that how do we and let people empower themselves, because they should not be dependent on some SAPNA and some team from PSA's office alone. While we are there in the background, we need to have a digital platform, and that's what we are trying to put in place. And we have put up a RFP where TCS, Infosys, and quite a lot of large organizations are applying. And fortunately for us, one of the high net worth income individuals has funded this digital platform development itself. Like I mentioned, that we try our best not to touch the government funds, because this whole department is about philanthropic sector. There are other departments which work with the government funding. So here we are setting up a digital platform where all of you can get to engage with the startups, with the institutes very freely and seamlessly. You can put up your offers, you can put up your challenges. A state government also can put up its challenge, saying that, okay, I need entire waste management piece to be done, or I need to rejuvenate this particular lake in Alsur, or whatever. Similarly, central government can say that I have funding for to undertake a particular R&D, and I request industries also to co-fund with us, and then take it to the startups and so on. Similarly, any industry can say that I have this problem statement where I would like to do, I would like to take charge of the traffic of Bangalore, and I want a hackathon on IT tools related to traffic management. It could be anything. Industry can offer anything. It can engage with their problem statements. It could also engage behind the scenes, because some of the industry R&D, they may not want everybody else to know. So it can choose that, okay, I want to work only with 20 of these IITs or 5 of these ICARs. And you can choose, and then behind the scenes, you can be engaging with those IITs and working with them. This will also track, outcome and accountability, which means that if an institute is taking more time to respond to you, it gets tracked. We could, like an Uber driver, we could also be having, ratings where the researchers and innovators get ratings, so that you know that you would like to engage with them or not engage. Because you may have the finest mind, but if you don't have the attitude of helping your nation, or working at a pace which industry understands and appreciates, then we really don't want to engage with you. You could do your work outside of the platform or outside of the office of the PSA. As long as we are concerned, we are very particular about the outcome, and we would like to measure it and track the entire accountability, across the thing. And the next way forward, of course, is that we are signing this MOU, so that whatever proposals that we receive from the Bangalore cluster, we could pass it on to you for you to review it, and you could even be peer reviewers. You could also be industry evaluators. So I will request my team to send across to the BCIC some of these forms, and if anybody would like to engage at an intellectual level, you could also do that. We are looking for subject matter experts even from the industry, so that we can engage regularly. The whole idea of having this cluster proposals is that these proposals will be evaluated by a set of industry as well as academic subject matter evaluators, so that only the evaluated and the final proposals come across to you. That's about it from me. Happy to take any number of questions that the team has, and I'm also available offline for further engagements. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Sapna. Wonderful insight of PSA activities. And I'm very happy that you brought in the industry perspective and how industries can get engaged. And of course, with a bigger purpose in mind. So I think it's a time that we can raise some of the Q&A to Dr. Sapna. So I think we can, I think somebody's Any questions we can always ask her, or we can even write later. Okay, one question, Sapna. I think now currently the COVID wave 1 and wave 2. Now wave 3, what is the kind of preparation that from the PSA office you are anticipating as a nation? And what kind of initiatives are required to combat the wave 3, which is likely in October, November?
Right. So, like I mentioned, that ICMR and Ministry of Health are the organizations, the line ministries, which work on COVID initiatives and things like that. Our role is to add to that or support in many ways. So, for instance, vaccine manufacturing as well as vaccine development. That's our role. So that's how you got those two vaccines. I mean, most of them you would be aware that vaccines takes about 20 to 25 years to build it. But instead of that, we have taken 10 months to come up with the vaccine and manufacture to the extent that the manufacturers agree to manufacture. So that is something that has been done along with ICMR and Ministry of Health. So R&D is what we take care. So I also talked about reagents, which we developed in-house. Similarly, we are developing oxygen as well as zeolites, manufacturing of zeolites and oxygen in-house, and the hospitals that we are constructing. All of that is in addition to the regular, projects that ICMR and Ministry of Health would be undertaking.
So the geolites has been a very big challenge because this membrane is the most important part of the whole thing, oxygen generator. So this manufacturing, local manufacturing, what is the current progress now?
So zeolites, we have identified through Indian Oil Corporation. We got to know about one organization called Chaitanya Chemicals in Andhra Pradesh, and similarly, Honeywell also has supported in zeolites. And as we speak, there is a third organization, a consortium, which has come up, which is also, but all of them are in approval stage. So they have to cross the approval stage, and then the manufacturing will be done. Like I mentioned, that there's a consortium for oxygen concentrators and oxygen made in India. Similarly, the same zeolites, the scale up as well as the absorption will be done by this consortium.
Because we had a big challenge.
A lot of CSR organizations are funding that. NMDC, for instance, has funded about 80 crores, I think 100 crores plus in all of these projects, zeolites as well as oxygen concentrators.
I see. Because this was one of the big challenge when we wanted to get this equipment. Because we finally caught hold of a manufacturer. We wanted to support a COVID center. Finally, I had a big negotiation. Then finally, I thrashed down the lead time, and I'm happy to say that next week the equipment is coming. In 3-4 weeks, we could manage to get it. But otherwise, zeolite was a big, challenge for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So far, we were importing. So now we have started manufacturing in India.
Okay.
And we have also got Tata Sons involved. We have requested them to look at the Chaitanya Chemicals and approve it. If that happens, then they could also look at larger scale and so on. So like I mentioned, that industries can not only support in CSR funding, but they can also, if their expertise is in a particular area, they can also fund through that expertise area. So like Schneider Electric provides electric equipments at times in massive numbers. So that is one way of helping the startups or institutes. Some of them provide large computing space, like Dell can provide computing infrastructure for virology as well as genome sequencing and so on.
Right. So we have, in fact, a very, very active startup cell under the aegis of the Young BCIC. So last year we had a startup award, the Star Award event, where we had 200 plus startups participated across Karnataka. So this year we are having it as a pan-India event. So we are launching it very shortly.
Right. So there are two ways that you could do that. One is you could launch it through our digital platform in case it is already ready by then. else we can take the startup, we can take your startup innovation, whatever is the challenge, to all the startups across the nation. So we could support you in outreach of this challenge, and we would also like to design it along with you, because since we have already designed so many startup challenges, we'll be happy to support you in that as well.
Shekhar, you'd like to take up some questions?
Parasu, no problem. So now one of the important points that keeps coming is about, I'm not going to talk about a COVID, but I'm just wanted to understand from the science and technology perspective. And government's great vision is to make India a $5 trillion economy, and they're trying to revive the manufacturing as much as possible. And R&D, research and development, is one of the key aspects for manufacturing. I just wanted to check with you, is the government is planning to, of course, I know very well from a scientific team, you are planning to get as much R&D clusters and stuff like that. But is the government is planning to come out with any exclusive policy on research and development, which will help the private sector to focus more on R&D, providing them sort of incentives? For example, now the government has granted PLA incentives for manufacturing, which is absolutely taking place very well. Is the government is coming out with any that sort of incentives for exclusive R&D? Sapna, you got any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so like I mentioned that my vertical does not work with the government and government policies. My work is largely with CSR and largely with industries and largely with philanthropic sector. So the whole idea is industry, academia, how they can work together in this space.
Right. Okay. Fair point. Then just one more point before there's a lot of questions are come in the chat box. Let me ask those questions in the chat box before I ask my questions.
Right. And one more point before that, the whole idea of putting R&D in the Schedule 7 of Ministry of Corporate Affairs, under CSR was so that R&D also gets CSR funds. Otherwise, usually industries end up spending their R&D funds for R&D, right? But here you can also be spending CSR funds for R&D as long as it aligns to the SDG. So if you're doing some e-mobility, that's going to help you with the business, but it aligns with the SDG, you can always get it, and you can also co-patent it.
Very good. I'm just trying to see them because I'm not able to see the message in the laptop for the question. I hope it is in the mobile. Only 1 minute. Couple of questions that come, but I don't see that in my laptop.
See, one question that has come is,
I'm
does
able to see
PSA
this.
work on corporate?
Does PSA works on corporate requirements, ideas built around, or it also covers individual ideas around CSR programs?
I haven't got the question because both of you were talking together.
The question is like this. Sorry. The question is, does PSA works on corporate requirements, or it also covers individual ideas around CSR programs?
It depends on the corporate. So if the corporate wants to work on a corporate program, for instance, if the vision of the corporate is to work on waste management or water technologies and so on, then the funding comes from the CSR organization. So they tell us that we would like to fund technologies in this area or proof of concept in this area, or we would like to set up a center of excellence in this area. So that's the corporate program. That is depending on the corporate. Individuals, if they have ideas, they can give it to their CSR heads, and through that, it may translate into a CSR. And of course, if that individual is a high net worth income person, for instance, Chris Gopal Krishnan, Mr. Narayan Murthy, Mr. Lakshmi Narayan, all of them also fund many of our institutes through us, where they say that we would like to this X project, which is focusing on water technologies. HT Parekh, for instance, he has extensively given hundreds and hundreds of crores for different international centers of excellence on water technologies that we have set up across the country. Robert Bosch again has set up artificial intelligence centers of excellence. As individuals also they provide. It all depends on who's funding and or who's supporting that initiative and how that person wants to support. We welcome individuals as well as corporates.
Okay. Thank you, Sapna. I have no other points. Back to you, Parasu.
Oh, I think, thank you. We had a very good insight of the PSA initiatives. And definitely, I think we'll share the perspectives with our member companies. And definitely, we'll also put your message to all the member companies of BCIC. And I hope that there is a good activity and collaboration in the days to come. And we are also actively looking forward to the collaboration with the Indian Institute of Science for the PSA office, so that BCIC can participate, and through their member reach, we can participate in whatever way possible. So we look forward to the continued participation and looking forward to working with you together. So,
right.
Once again, today, very thankful to you for your message. And we wish you all the very best in all your future endeavors. This is all for a national cause. And we only believe that vaccination is the only key. And yesterday, FM's message was very promising that by September, at least 70% of India. But it's a very, very optimistic message. But still, we are struggling to see that kind of message in reality. So, because 70% completion by September is a fantastic target. She's talking about 9 million vaccines per day. Currently, we are struggling at 3.2 today. So, but I hope that that realizes into a very powerful COVID countermeasure, and hopefully India should combat wave 3 with a lot of courage, and hopefully children also should be vaccinated by that time. So that is our vision and belief. So with these words, I request the secretary to take over to felicitate Dr. Sapna Poti.
Yeah, thank you, President. Thank you, President, sir. Ma'am, it was a wonderful talk, and then that too you spoke extra. That shows how sound knowledge you have on the subject, on the various sectors you have covered everything. It's really good, and as our president has promised, we'll be disseminating this information to all our members and see how actively we get participated with the PSA office and Indian Institute of Science to take it. As a token of appreciation from the chamber, we would like to felicitate with you a memento, virtual memento, and we'll ensure that it reaches your office or your home. Purushottam, can you play the memento, virtual memento? Thank you all. Let's have the national anthem played a minute of respect.
जनगण अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you, Sapna, once again for your time. And
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Sapna. Thank you
bye,
so much.
Sapna.
Thank
Bye.
you, Shekhar. Bye.